Thank you, sir. Well, thank you for your patience, good people. As you can see, President Faub is not here today. I will be manning the ropes, and neither Superintendent Neal. We have the more than capable Dr. Gorman, but we're going to, of course, get started with our Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Also, our Secretary, Ms. Christian Grant, is unavailable today, and Reverend Matias will be acting as Secretary. If you could call the roll, sir.
Okay, let's begin. Ms. Lewis is excused. Reverend Matias here. Mrs. Shockey is excused. Ms. Slade.
Present.
Dr. Baker.
Here.
Dr. Flores.
Present.
Ms. Grant excused. President Faub excused. Vice President Ross.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Support?
So moved. Support.
Great. So we have celebrations, Dr. Gorman. Is that correct?
Vice President Ross and members of the board, we have one celebration this evening. I would like to ask Dr. Maida Gunnell to come forward.
Good evening, Dr. Gorman and Vice President Ross. I'd like to ask Mrs. Malika Brown to come up.
Good evening, Dr. Gorman, Vice President Ross, members of the board.
Evening.
It is a pleasure to sit before you tonight to honor 26 very deserving students. Warner Norcross and Judd have engaged our students for the last 13 years in reflecting on the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And they did so again this year by inviting them to write and submit essays using on one of three prompts. I'm pleased to report that this year we had more than 300 essays
Wonderful.
submitted to Warner Norcross, and we are pleased to host the authors of the top three essays and the 23 honorable mention award winners, as well as representatives from Warner Norcross. So I'm happy to welcome diversity partner Rodney Martin and community relations liaison Courtney Failer. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Martin to present and honor our students and their families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back for the 13th time to introduce this year's winners, some very special children who wrote some incredible essays. As Malika said, there were nearly 350 essays this year from 16 different schools. So the essay contest has really grown in terms of the number of schools participating and all, and that's tremendous to see. We had over 50 attorneys and staff members from our firm from all over the state read the essays. Every essay was read by at least 6 people, and from that we selected the 3 winners and 23 students who will receive honorable mention. Tonight I'm going to ask each of the 3 winners to come up and read their essays, and then we'll present the awards to each of the honorable mentions, and then I'll take them out and take their picture. So that's the plan. This year's second runner-up is Shemaiah Dixon from Riverside Middle School.
Good evening.
Good evening.
No more silence. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There are different kinds of silence. Sometimes we should speak up and get what's bothering us out. Other times we should speak up to keep people from doing bad things. What will happen to our world and lives if all of a sudden no one cared about anybody and let bad things happen without saying anything? I believe everyone's lives would be miserable if they kept either silence. There would be no happiness. There would be nothing but sadness in this world. When I watch the news, I see a lot of terrible things that could have been prevented if someone had spoken up. In Kalamazoo and other cities on the news, there's been a lot of shooting. Most of that is because people don't want to talk. They want to keep silent about what's bothering them. They also keep silent even if they know some information that could stop someone from snapping and hurting other people. That's why the government always says, if you see something, say something. 11 years ago, in 2006, my father's life became miserable because of his silence. That day, my father went to jail. If he had spoken up and told the police who caused this whole thing, he wouldn't be where he is now. Instead, he got lied on and took the blame for everything. That day, I found out I wouldn't have a father to read bedtime stories to me or be there to drive me to the bus corner when I was scared. I always wanted to go to the father-daughter dance with him, but I couldn't because he was never there. All those years, I remained silent. I never told anyone how I felt. As Americans, we need to learn about all the different kinds of silences. We need to find out if people need our help to work things out in their lives. If we don't, we can't stop the evilness from coming to this world. In other conditions, we need to speak up in order to right wrongs. Either way, there should be no more silence.
Wow.
Congratulations, good job.
Excuse me.
Shemaya, you mind?
Could you just read the first sentence again? Just the first sentence.
There are different kinds of silence.
When you said our lives begin to end,
Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
that's incredible. The way-
That is worth underscoring. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The first runner-up is Elaine Anderson from the Center for Economicology.
All right.
Life is an important thing, and God chose to give it to us for a reason. Thus, we all need to live life to the fullest. But how? How are we supposed to do this if we are not all truly accepted as equals? Our Constitution, the United States Constitution, stated that all men were created equal. But if that is true, why are people today still persecuted and ridiculed for believing in their own God? Please tell me why people of power can talk about other races as though they aren't people of worth. No, scratch that. Please tell me why anyone can talk about other human beings like they're worthless. It's not by any means right. People should always be treated equally, no matter their sexual orientation, race, religion, or who they love. It is so important to accept people. Did you know that 5,000 LGBTQ youth now take their lives each year, and 500,000 attempt suicide? Those are repulsive statistics. Do you know what I think? I think people are afraid of change and diversity. I think we're all just cowards, not just me and not just you, but everyone. I suppose the reason for this is because you have to get rid of your old ideas or opinions and embrace new and unknown ones. Humans are stubborn. We stick to what we're comfortable with. Look at yourself right now. Embrace yourself. Tell me, what color are you? Some of you may be black, and some may be so white you sometimes feel transparent. Do you know what color I am? My color is human. That's the only color I could ever want to be. Labels are for clothes, not people. So what if you're gay, or what if you're straight, or black, or for God's sakes green? You're no less human than the person sitting next to you today. So I implore you to make a change in how you feel. I am your child, cannot make you change. But if I did, then I know that I have made you a better person, and you have fulfilled God's request to love all.
Thank you.
And this year's grand prize winner is Romani Belcher from Riverside Middle School.
Good evening.
Good evening.
A step of faith. Faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Let me start out by saying that I'm not a very confident or positive kind of person. Almost the opposite. Dr. King, on the other hand, was confident and always saw his glass as half full. His positivity changed our lives for the better. This quote has motivated and inspired me to have a little more faith in myself and others. To me, this quote means that you have to have faith in anything you strongly believe in, even though you might not know what you have ahead of you. We need to keep our faith strong even when you don't know the consequences of acting on it. There was a time when something like this happened to me. A couple of years ago, I was walking to my bus stop, and I overheard an older kid from our school bullying a girl that I hadn't seen before. At first, I did nothing, and I just stood there. I listened to what the older kid was saying, and I was shocked and paralyzed. She was calling her ugly and stupid and a whole bunch of stuff just to put her down. I walked up closer. There was a crowd of kids cheering her on. The victim girl was in tears. No one stood up for her. There was a lot of cursing involved too. They had her in a corner now. I didn't know what to do. I was just in a daze, watching, hoping that someone would help this girl, but no one did. Not even me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Without thinking, I shot my way to the front of the crowd. My heart raced. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Kids started yelling for me to get out of the way, but I didn't move. Not like I could anyway. I was frozen with fear and no plan. I glanced at the picked on girl. She stopped crying. It felt like we looked into each other's souls. The older kid pushed me, but instead of pushing her back, I calmly talked to her. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it must have been good because I do remember the look on the bully's face. The whole crowd was in awe. I felt like such the bigger person. The older kid said something under her breath and left. Shortly, the crowd of kids left too. I looked into the girl's eyes and she burst into tears. She tightly gave me a hug and I could feel the weights being lifted off her shoulders. I started to cry too. She whispered into my ears 2 words. Thank you. I never did find out how the whole thing started, but I'll never forget how it ended. That girl and I are still friends to this day. I never thought that I could do something so good or changing for anyone. Just like Dr. King, I want to fight without using violence, and I thank myself for giving myself that step of faith.
I think maybe one of the most terrifying things, Romani read her essay at the Martin Luther King Community Celebration in that pulpit in Fulton Street Church full of people, and she did a fantastic job just like she did tonight. Well, all the winners and honorable mentions will receive a gift card from Schuler Books and Music and a certificate of participation. And then each student who wrote an essay will receive a certificate of participation. So if I may, I'm going to go through now and ask the students to come down and receive their packet. Bradley Schmidt from the C.A. Frost Environmental Science Academy. Solana Schmidt from Frost Environmental Science Academy. So good to have you here. Willie Byron Williams, Center for Economicology. Leah Beaucamp from the Center for Economicology. Yaneli Gonzalez Cantino from the Center for Economicology. Constantine Van Ravensway, Center for Economicology. Fiona Eiselman from the Center for Economicology. Efren Leon from the Center for Economicology. Morgane Thibault from the Center for Economicology. Congratulations. Elijah Fleming from the Center for Economicology. Sophia Ferenzi from the Grand Rapids Public Museum School. Carl Pollert Conant from Grand Rapids Montessori. Liam Duncan from Grand Rapids Montessori. Rosalinda Rios Ramirez from Harrison Park. Kevin Vasquez Aquilar from Harrison Park. Jamie Calderon from Harrison Park. Sophie Van Drager from the John Ball Zoo School. It's great to see so many different schools represented here. Sierra Renee Chavez Perkins from Riverside Middle School. Carlton Warrens from Riverside Middle School. Daniel Duran from Riverside Middle School. Julie Charity from Riverside Middle School. Kanaya Statham from Riverside Middle School. And Naja Brown from Sherwood Park Global Studies Academy. You can clap. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. You guys want to shake my hands? Blue Season, can we shake some hands? Do you mind get some congratulations shakes in?
City, huh? I like those shirts. See you again.
Takes a lot of brain, a lot of courage. Sure does.
Well. Oh.
Some others behind you.
Can't forget you, congratulations.
Thank you very
Más work. Buen hecho, qué bueno.
much. Oh.
First lesson.
Wow.
First lesson.
Yeah, that's powerful. Although, that's a tough act to follow. Well, that's a tough act to follow for our student representatives. But you guys have any commentary for the board?
Ladies first.
Sure. Good evening. Last Thursday, there was a collaboration with the Mayor's Youth Council, the Ottawa's Early Middle College, and the Student Council. They were able to get a field and learn for each other, and also participate in activities such as the scavenger hunt and the extreme rock, paper, scissors, shoot. There's also a Kids Speak coming up in April, where kids K through 12 can voice their opinions on certain topics. I'll have more information in the next board meeting. And winter sports are closely coming to an end. Last Saturday, wrestling team just had their conference, and this Saturday, they finishing off with their districts. And on a personal note, I got accepted to Davenport University for online classes. I'll be majoring in cyber defense. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
All right, well, good job.
Very good.
Excellent.
Innovation Central went to districts for DECA recently, and about a dozen of our students medaled. So we'll be going out to states in March down in Detroit. So that's exciting. Youth in Government's coming up. That's the 22nd of this month. We'll go down to Lansing and we'll sit in the chambers and discuss a few bills, hopefully get a few passed. And for me, myself, you guys remember how I told you guys about Christmas? It could be a good one or a bad one. Well, it was a good Christmas. I got into University of Michigan.
All right.
Full tuition,
Great,
so
great,
that's where we'll be
great.
going.
That's what's up. Congratulations to you both. All right, excellent. Congratulations to you both. I am curious about extreme rock, paper, scissors. You can tell me later. Makes it extreme.
Okay, so I kind of took the title on that because I was in the meeting too. So what happens is two new people, never met before, go against each other. If you win, the person that loses cheers your name on, and you go against everyone in the room. So eventually there'll be two people and everyone else chanting your name.
That is
So it was
extreme.
pretty fun. It was pretty networking there.
They use real rocks.
Scissors, okay. All right, well, great. Thank you. That sounds interesting. All right, any public comment for board agenda items? No comment?
We have none.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the secretary's report.
We have two. One is that we will have a board committee update. The Board of Liaison Committee will be meeting Thursday, February 8th, from 2 to 3:30 in room 101 of the Administration Building here. And also, the Cesar E. Chavez Social Justice Activities, March 15th. The community is invited to participate in the Cesar E. Chavez Social Justice Activities taking place on Thursday, March 15th, beginning at 11 with Cesar E. Chavez Social Justice March in the Cesar E. Chavez Elementary School at 1205 Granville Avenue Southwest. There will be a community gathering at 11:30 at the Potter's House School located at 811 Chicago Drive Southwest, a unity luncheon which will take place at Maya Mexican Grill and Bar at 1 p.m. Representatives are required for the unity lunch, reservations are required. The community can visit the Facebook page of the committee to honor Cesar E. Chavez to learn more.
All right, great.
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Committee chair updates. The finance committee chair is excused, so I don't know if we have any other.
Yeah, I'm taking over, so.
Okay, all right, so do you have an update for us?
Yeah, actually, we're just going to discuss the last finance committee meeting, which I still chaired in January,
Okay.
was the budget amendment. And so we can use this opportunity to learn more about the budget amendment. You're ready to discuss it, right, Larry? All right. So
Okay.
you want to?
Well, we can move, those are action items. If you want to explain them now, Larry, or come up one at a time and deal with them then. Maybe we'll deal with them so it's fresh on everyone's, I said we'll deal with it then so it's fresh on everyone's perspective. So let's go ahead and move, superintendent's report, there we go. Says it right there, call Larry.
Vice President Ross and members of the board, I would like to ask Mr. Larry Oberst to come forward. He will provide two reports this evening. The first is second count day importance, and secondly, an overview of the Budget Amendment 1.
Segues perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Ross, board members, Dr. Gorman. February 14th this year, there are two huge events going on. The minor of the two is Valentine's Day, which that's all I'm going to say about Valentine's Day. The more important event for this district is our spring count day. And as you know, obviously it's important every day that our students come to class regularly. And they've been doing that, but it's especially important on that one day in October and this one day, February 14th, in February, because those are the 2 days that the state has designated as official count days. And our state funding is based on how many students show up on those particular days. Now, the fall count day, which happened back in October, is worth 90% of our blended count. And the spring count date in February 14th this year, is worth 10% of our blended count. This February's count would be 10% of next year's blended count for our fiscal year 18-19 year. Last February count is combined with the last fall count for our blended count for the current year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the budget amendment. So it's very important that we publicize this count date. There'll be some media release, and we will do a job internally of making sure our kids are very aware and our families are very aware of how important it is for them to come to school as they normally should on February 14th, so we can get that count date, or the count up as high as it should be. So that's what's going on February 14th.
How
Pardon me?
much does Valentine's Day count as a minor event in your household?
You know, a minor event? Who knows? It depends on the year, I guess. So anyways, that's the count date information. Questions, comments? All right. The other issue that we have before us, as Dr. Baker mentioned and Mr. Gorman mentioned, is, and there are actually 3 action items that will be taken by this board tonight, 3 resolutions to be approved, relates to our First Amendment for the fiscal year 17-18. Now, as we've talked all along, as for those of you who have been on the board for a while, you know that the initial budgets are usually approved in June, and then we typically come in January, February with a budget amendment that reflects what we know after the first 6 months of our fiscal year. The big thing being enrollment, as I just mentioned, our big 90% of our fall count factors into the blended enrollment that we get paid the foundation allowance on for 17-18. We have a better sense of where the property values have come out and how much tax revenue we'll get locally. You may recall our state foundation allowance is funded jointly from local property tax, the 18 mills that are assessed on non-homestead property, and then the other part of that foundation allowance comes from the state of Michigan. So as property values increase and we generate more local dollars, the amount we actually get from the state school aid fund goes down. So it really helps the state's budget when property values go up locally. So we make some adjustments based on that. You may also recall that this year is the first year that the new enhancement millage kicked in that was approved by voters last May. Being the first year, we were a bit conservative in the budget process back in June in terms of estimating that revenue. So we did make an adjustment for about $450,000 upward to increase the enhancement millage revenue that we expect in the current year. We also, after the year gets going here, we get a better sense of where our retirement dollars are going to come out. In this case, a little bit of an increase. We suspected that based on what the governor's budget, or the budget actually approved by the state. But once we get the payroll in place, we also had you may recall, we also had a new payroll framework for our teachers. And while we made some estimates of the overall increase in wages for our teachers, we hadn't yet, at that point in time in June, when we adopted the budget, placed our teachers where they belong in this new framework to actually know for a fact how much it was going to cost us where. So we made some true-ups as it related to compensation and benefits for the first 6 months of the year. And that all relates primarily to the general fund, which again is a major fund. As I went over with the Finance Committee on Monday, in terms of all those revenue and expense side, normal reoccurring things we see in most of our first amendments, as I mentioned, enrollments, the property taxes, enhancement millage this year, ultimate compensation and benefits, and a few other minor adjustments up and down where we think we're going to end the year up in fiscal year 18 or 17-18. All in all, Amendment 1 for the general fund uses another about $1.5 million of fund balance. And budget that was presented to you back in June that you approved had a estimated fund balance into this current fiscal year of about 7.98%. Amendment 1, the reduction of 1.5 million will get us down to a general fund balance of 7.35% of revenue. Again, 5% is a minimum dictated by both the state and the board policy. So we're still substantially above the 5%. We continue to work throughout the remainder of this fiscal year as we begin the budgeting process for 18-19 to look at other areas we can be more efficient in our operations, areas we can maybe make some additional cost adjustments to reduce costs. There may be some additional revenue enhancements as the year goes on. We are in the process right now of having our fall count audited by the ISD. Generally, we don't get those results until May of some point in time, and so we may or may not pick up for a few students based on those audited numbers. We won't know that until about May. So that usually comes, the final audited fall count usually comes in time for us to finalize the next year's budget, and we can take a look at those enrollment projections based on an audited number from the state at that point in time. So that's where things stand on the general fund amendment 1. The other two funds that we are required by law to budget and therefore you have to approve amendments to, the bigger of the two would be the special revenue fund. And that primarily, the two big areas there are in the special revenue fund are our special education centers program and our food service program. Centers program, similar adjustments based on enrollment true-ups from our fall count. There's some adjustments to compensation benefits also in that area. Food service, entirely funded with federal dollars, but as school starts, we know how many students at that point in time are taking subsidized lunches, and we can better predict and make adjustments for Amendment 1, additional federal revenue or to reflect that. On the debt retirement fund, and that is a fund that accumulates the dollars from our debt millage to retire the debt, outstanding debt of the district. We make adjustments every year, again, based on updated property tax information, because again, all the debt retirement money that goes into there comes from the property tax assessment on all property in the county, and so, or all in the district. So as we know what those updated property values are, tax bills go out in summer for school taxes and debt retirement, and so we have a sense of where those dollars are going to come out and make adjustments there. And that's really all the adjustments we ever make on the debt retirement fund. So that, in general, is where we came out on Amendment 1. We'll continue to monitor operations, as I mentioned, and likely will be another amendment in May, just before we end the school year, to true up, again, the budget where we think we're ultimately going to end up at the end of June. So questions on any of that information?
Question.
Yes, sir.
On the student count, you said the spring count day for last year then would have been what we're using this year.
Correct.
As part of that. How far were we off on projection versus audited numbers for spring count?
I don't know in the spring count, Dr. Flores. I can tell you that the projected blended count in the current year budget we started with in June was 16,926. And if the blended count we're estimating right now is about 16,790. So from budget for this year, 135 approximately less.
Okay, do we have a projected spring count right now that we're projecting for this upcoming count day?
I don't have that.
I'm just curious.
Student data services may have that.
Okay.
The last couple of years, we have actually seen an increase, the spring count, over the prior fall count. So it'd be our hope that that number would go up. But again, there's all these adjustments I mentioned that are going on in the fall count right now during the audit. There's the adjustments, Section 25 adjustments we talked about every year. That's where students move between districts, between count dates, and that process is ongoing until February 14th. So we're getting those adjustments weekly, daily, in and out that we're dealing with, as well as I mentioned earlier, the current audit going on of the fall count, the ISD. Actually, they may have been done last week. I'm not sure if they're back here this week, but the last couple of weeks they've been auditing those numbers. So, and that's where some of our adjustments may come in Amendment 2 come May, as I mentioned, where we have audited numbers in fall and have a final blended amount.
I will still remain curious as to what the actual discrepancy between our projected count, spring count was last year versus our audited spring count, and whether those figures are not available at this point, perhaps
They are,
could
no,
be shared.
they're available. I just don't have them.
Just like to see how far we're off or how close we are.
So spring of
and making
last
those-
year, of 17, you're saying?
Yeah, projected versus audited.
We can get that, I can get that
I'm
to you.
just curious. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, a couple
Dr.
other,
Baker?
just some key numbers I just want to, because there a lot of information. The fund balance, 7.98 was projected and 7.35 is the new projection for.
Correct.
For the
Correct.
end of the year.
Correct.
Okay. Changes were because of the differences with count day. Also, the hitting the new payroll system that increased our
Yep,
compensation. So those are kind of some key numbers that I wanted to hear. So,
Okay, any questions? One quick question, sir.
Yes,
Sort
yes.
of to Dr. Baker's point. So that 1.5 million that you mentioned that's coming from the fund balance, that was particularly regards to general operating fund resolution, not
That is a
Amendment
general
one,
operating
general.
fund, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's the only fund balance the state monitors, frankly, and that we have to be concerned about. Again, that's our major operating fund, the general fund.
No, I mean, but so you mentioned that there was 1.5 million
Additional use of that fund
of
balance.
the fund balance,
Yeah.
and, but again, that 1.5 million is strictly in regards to the general operating. We wouldn't be
correct.
pulling from the fund balance for those other, because special revenue speaks
That's
for
correct.
itself.
That's correct.
Gotcha, okay, yeah. All right, well, thank you.
And I just need to remind the board that there are 3 separate resolutions that need to be adopted separately, one the general fund, one for the special revenue fund, and one for the debt retirement fund,
All right, yes, sir.
for those amendments.
All right, well, thank you. If no final questions, I guess we'll move on to those action items. The commentary, Dr. Gorman, you good? All right, well, Reverend Matias, if you could take the vote for our action items.
So do you want me to go one by one?
Yeah,
in
well,
terms of, each of the votes?
I guess if,
we make a.
if someone wants to make a motion to combine those, I suppose we can do that.
No, we have to do them.
We have to do them
separately.
separately? Okay, well, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and get started with general operating fund resolution.
Okay,
Motion to approve the general operating fund amendment 1.
okay. Ms. Lewis is excused. Reverend Matias, yes. Ms. Shockey is excused. Ms. Slade?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Grant is excused. President Felb is excused. Vice President Ross?
Yes,
Motion carries.
great. And then,
Motion to approve the special revenue fund resolution budget amendment 1.
do we have a support?
Support.
Okay. Ms. Lewis is excused. Reverend Matias, yes. Ms. Shotke is excused. Ms. Slade?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Grant is excused. President Felb is excused. Vice President Ross?
Yes,
Motion carries.
all right. And a motion for the debt retirement fund resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Ms. Lewis is excused. Reverend Matias, yes. Ms. Shotke is excused. Ms. Slade?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Grant is excused. President Feld is excused. Vice President Ross?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then the final action item is our purchasing agenda.
I make a motion to approve the purchasing agenda.
Support.
Ms. Lewis is excused. Reverend Matias, yes. Ms. Shotke is excused. Ms. Slade?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Grant is excused. President Feld is excused. Vice President Ross?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Okay, well, our consent agenda grouping, do we have a motion for that?
Motion to approve the consent agenda grouping.
Support for that motion.
Support.
Okay, Ms. Lewis is excused. Reverend Matias, yes. Ms. Shotke is excused. Ms. Slade?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Grant is excused. President Feld excused. Vice President Ross?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We don't have any discussion items. Do we have any public comment for non-agenda items that you're aware of?
We do not have any.
All right, well, excellent. Dr. Gorman, any comments from you?
No comment.
All righty, well, we will start on the end here with Dr. Flores. Do you have any comments tonight, sir?
Congratulations on the both receiving approvals at major institutions, and you're carving out your future career pathway. That's what we want for all of our students, upward and onward. So congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Baker?
Yeah, I'll second that, and just to make sure you, between now and the time you leave, get everybody here to support you and make sure we'll that next step.
Thank you.
Very true, thank you. Ms. Slade?
Comment.
Reverend Matias?
Just want to encourage parents. We know that our kids are getting sick as we are, and it's really important to get them to sleep and healthy, especially for Count Day. We want to encourage our kids to all come to school as is stated every day, but in particular those days where it seems to count more. And so we just want to encourage our parents to continue. Proud of our athletics and how they're working really hard, even throughout this season, the winter. And so, thank you.
Excellent. No comment from me. Thank you all for coming out. Guys have a good night. We're adjourned.